música hace 500 años que no viene a la tierra. Por eso se llevó por ciego en el eco que dice gloria para usted, que gloria para yo.
Vamos para la fiesta, que llegó la gente. Mira qué rico se ha puesto el ambiente. Vamos para la fiesta, que llegó la gente. Mira qué rico se ha puesto el ambiente.
Mira qué rico
Hello, beautiful people of Isaac in Americas. Welcome to this keynote, and let's start. Well, this session is going to be a very brief session, and we're going to talk about supply and demand and the new context in our region. For those of us that we do not have the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Jair. I am originally from Mexico, and I'm going to be the regional manager for ICX in the next term. Something about me, it's that one MCVP from Isaac in Venezuela called me the Mexican prodigal son coming back home because I used to be part of Isaac in Europe. I was MCVP back in the UK, and I became very crafty while on quarantine. At the end of the session, I will show you that I actually had an empty bottle of tequila and I put, like liquid gel for your hands in it. And now it's a dispenser. So it's a very crafty thing. And I want to show it to you as a random fact. All right. Now let's talk about the objectives for this session. What are we going to be talking or discussing about in this session? What I want us to understand is the journey that our EPs are going through and our partners are going through at this time as an organization. Then I'm going to make some points on what are the global and regional contexts that we're living as of today. And then we're going to talk a little bit about GB, and then we're going to talk about GT, GTA, and GTE. And I'm going to show you some data so you guys know what's going on, where are we opening opportunities, what are the key players in the region. And then we're going to talk about something that is very cool, very new in Isaac, that is the partly remote or the remote feature, and how are we doing so far in there. And at the end, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to rock your S&D, your supply and demand. So let's go. But first, before everything, I want to start with a story. And this is something that I learned from Omar from Showcaser Media, that he always started his sessions back when he was MCVP. Now he's our partner at Showcaser Media that are helping us, transmit the session live for you guys. And he always started with a story. And I'm going to tell you the story of Laura. And Laura is one of the 33,000 people that signed into our platform since August of this year. And I want to tell you a little bit about Laura. Well, she found Isaac through Instagram. She's kind of like the newer generation that uses Instagram, not Facebook anymore, as you can understand. Well, she's a recent graduate of business, and she really, really wants to go abroad because she wants to differentiate herself from her peers. And well, she signed through Isaac in Americas because I don't want to use any entity, so you guys won't be angry at me for saying like, oh, you mentioned my entity and you said bad things. No, we're just gonna talk about the region. So her LC or her home entity is Isaac in Americas. All right. So what's happening in Laura's world as of today, right? Some of the external context. Here on the top left, you can find a funny one. That is that Disney Plus launched in Latin America and everybody was super excited about it. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. But the truth is that we're facing first a pandemic, right? I don't need to explain it to you. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought a real impact on the way that Laura was living her life and her work. And it really forced her to look for opportunities everywhere and everywhere else. Also, Laura is stuck in the middle of a very difficult political climate where there's a lot of instability in the region. And Laura is also facing something very interesting because of this too, and that there is a technological acceleration, right? Because Laura now needs to evolve very quickly into a workforce that is adapting to remote working, and they are even making it permanently. I don't know if you guys know, but there's companies like Google, Microsoft, Deloitte, these very big name companies that have decided to keep their workforce remote. And people can decide to go or not to the offices. But for example, Deloitte in the UK, they were planning to build this massive complex of offices, and they canceled everything due to the pandemic because they saw how cost effective it was to have people working remotely. So it's a very interesting thing just to put you in the mindset of what Laura is going through. Now, also, when you see graphs about it, uh, Laura is facing a situation of unprecedented economical crisis. You know, from 2017, we're seeing like a steady growth and then a bit of a drop in 2018. And in 2019, a massive drop. And this means that by the end of this year, uh, a lot of companies are going to close, and probably there's going to be a loss of around 8.5 million jobs in the region, which is massive. All right. But then Laura, after understanding her context, what's going on, has decided to become one of the 23,000 people to apply to one of our opportunities. And first, as most of our EPs, she decided that she wants to apply to a GV opportunity first because she empathized with the value proposition of going abroad to serve other people to really make an impact. And so, like around 8,000 people, she applied, and her entity, her LC, contacted her in 5 days, and she got accepted in two more, which accounts for 7 days. But as you guys may be facing this issue, Laura sadly decided that it wasn't she couldn't like handle the cost of going abroad to do a volunteer experience. So she broke her acceptance and went on to try and get a global talent opportunity, a long-term paid internship. And of course, Laura was a very lucky person because first she was accepted for an opportunity in Germany. That's crazy, right? Because there's not a lot of those. And she was selected, and she would have started in October, but you know what's happening in Europe right now? That they are having their second wave of the pandemic, and right now she was a little bit scared, and the company didn't have a lot of clarity on how to manage her visa process, so she would rather apply in the region. So she found an opportunity in one of our countries in Americas, and she applied for a GT opportunity. And our people took around 13 days to contact her, and then she went through some of the processes, some of the interviews. The company was very, very quick, and she was accepted in 5 days. After she got accepted, she was approved after 3 days, and she was ready to go. This accounts for what? Maybe 21 days for the whole process of global talent. Now, what's happening with Laura is that the company decided to start working from September remotely with her. So Laura started working from September. She was already onboarded with everything online. So Laura in our platform was put as one EP that is working as partly remote because there is this promise that she was going to the country to start her internship physically. And now that we come to November, Laura has finally arrived to the country and it's already on her GT, having a great experience. There is only one downside. Even though Laura is very happy with her experience, she feels a little bit worried and also a little bit dissatisfied with the safety protocols of her entity because both her home entity, her MC, and her LC were doing little to nothing to try and keep her safe. She had no clarity in what was being done to keep her safe from the pandemic or from getting, sick with the coronavirus. And I have just one question for you. If it's starting to make sense, do we have any Lauras in our entities? Of course, these are all of our EPs, and these are just some examples of what our customers are going through right now. And of course, as a very important note, you know that this pandemic, COVID-19, really changed the way that the world operates and that ISEC as an organization operates. And I think in other previous sessions that we were talking about how to handle and how to work in a pandemic, we were saying that we're still discovering how these changes will affect us on the long run. And of course, something very important to note is that the ISEC from January is not the same one as the one that we have now. It's a very different ISEC, a very different organization with very different challenges and needs. And I want to start talking about the internal changes and the challenges that we're facing as an organization so you can understand what is the context of the supply and the demand in our region. First, there was this decision made that we were going to shift our focus from GV to making GT. This happened because GV is a program, as you mostly know, that is not very sustainable. We haven't found how to make it completely sustainable. And at this point, there has been a lot of sacrifices made in our entities in order to keep them afloat. And we're trying to make them recover. And to recover our entities, we need money. And that's what was happening with GTs, that we're doing this focus shift. And mainly, we're trying to understand what needs to happen to have the product on standby, what needs to happen for us to restart operations, and for the regional office to understand how we can support you in your decisions, in your replannings, to take new initiatives, to take GV forward, or to change completely your focus into GT. And then, of course, in this year, we made a change. We decided to change our global talent and our global entrepreneur programs to have rather our global talent, global teachers. So what this meant is that we had to refresh our business model because we attempt to reflect better where companies and young people are asking of us what they need. And of course, we have no more GE, but rather we now have durations. We have long-term internships, middle-term internships, and short-term internships. And of course, Global Teacher became its own thing, became its own product. And now let's start talking a little bit about GV. And you will have a chance to interact with me, and I will show you how in just a second. But I want to talk a little bit about the GV conditions. If you guys have heard of the GV conditions, these are the things that are supposed to be happening in both IGV and OGV in our entities right now. First, we have the program minimums. And this is the criteria that we have to run all the programs. And how do we achieve it, right? And then you have the GV principle, and it's the criteria that changes according to each site, if it's ICX or OGX, and what is happening and what are the principles that we're putting in motion to be able to run GV. And then you have the GV conditions, and you have these conditions that are going to be legislated, and what are the conditions that an entity needs to have in order to run the program. And if you can, I want you to go either in your phone or your computer into this website that is called Slido. And it's going to ask you for a code. And I'm gonna ask you for if you can answer this question so I can see live what's happening in your entities. And the question is very simple. Has my entity implemented the GV conditions? And the first answer is yes to 100%. Another one is so, maybe like 30 to 70%. And the other one is 0, not at all. All right, thank you guys. I see the answers coming already. The first two answers are like so, maybe 30 to 70%. If you guys don't know if your entity has implemented, you can say not at all, or you can also be like so or yes, try to, just for us to have a sensing of what's going on in the region. Perfect, I will give you a couple more seconds just to compensate for the delay. Amazing. Most entities are saying so, like 30 to 70. A couple of entities saying yes, 100%, amazing. Of course, after this poll, I will show you some of the data that we have to see if this is actually true or not. Amazing. Just because of time, guys, I'm gonna keep going, but do not close this application or this website on your phone because I'm gonna be asking some more questions through this platform, all right? So basically the general consensus is that we have a so implementation, maybe to 30 to 70%, sometimes not at all, but yes to 100%, very few entities. So let's move on. Well, here you can see exactly the percentage of implementation that your entity has. Here are all the entities of ISEC in Americas, and this is a form that we send, and this is some of the checklists that you have to go through in order for us to know how is the percentage of fulfillment of the GV conditions in your entity. So for OGV, you have entities, for example, like ISEC in Brazil that has 100%. You have ISEC in Colombia, 83%. Some entities like Venezuela or Puerto Rico, sadly 0%. You guys need to step up your game to see what's going on in there. Or if you guys are not running at all GV, then you know what's going on in your entities. But then the answer of like so from 30 to 70% can account to the percentage of what's happening in the region. And then in IGV, the same thing. Some of you guys do not run IGV at all. So there's between like 100%, 72%, 27%. So this might account for more of like a 40 to 45% on average, right? Amazing. That we're still operating in terms of GV, right? So something very important that I want you guys to note is that we're expecting a lot of realizations for the next summer. And of course, we've been saying since the start of the pandemic, oh, maybe September, maybe December. And now the next time that we're waiting for operations to return to kind of normal is in the next summer peak. So you guys can see here that all of your work is aligned towards having a new summer peak in the next year. And it's the same on the other side. You guys can see clearly here in the data that most of our approvals and the realizations are coming in summer of 2021. And interestingly enough, you can see all the way to the right on the graph, you guys started to approve people that are going to be realized in 2022, which is an interesting phenomenon that we need to you take into consideration. Now, I want us to start talking a little bit about GTA and GT. This is just to put you on the headspace of where are we as a region, both in GB and GTs. And now, as a disclaimer, and as something that you probably already know, is that currently we cannot do exchange with everyone. And that is why our SND is changing. Why? Mainly because borders are closed. There's a lot of countries that have mandatory quarantine or arrival, which really affects our GB programs and affects our short-term internships because the time that we're in the country is very short. And if you're also wasting 14 or more days being locked, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You guys know perfectly well, sorry, that certain nationalities or citizens cannot enter specific countries from the ones that have the most amount of cases. We cannot enter some of the countries, and some mandatory COVID testing are being asked, but since we cannot deliver the equivalents to the other countries, sometimes they are not valid. And of course, there's a bunch of uncertainty on EPs and partners. And now, what I want you to see here is what's going on with the openings or the slots in the world. As you can see, and as a quick nod to us, is that we're the region that is growing the most. And that is something to be commended to you guys. Your hard work is paying off. And you can see here what are the work fields that we're selling the most. You can see that it's clearly business administration, marketing, and IT. And if you want to start understanding what's going on in the world, in Americas, we have a lot of opportunities open for long-term IT, mid-term marketing, short-term IT. Asia Pacific has for BD, for VA. Europe has for marketing mostly. And MIA has a lot of opportunities available for business and administration. Just for you to understand what is the demand that we have around the globe. And of course, let's talk a little bit about the applicants, the people that are coming and that we're sending abroad or we're trying to send abroad to approve them, first in global talent. And I want you to note two things. The first one, and this is something that is, again, to be commended and to be congratulated to you guys, is that a lot of applicants are going to places within our region. Because right now, we need to start working as a region to try and do the most amount of exchange possible. But if you guys see to your left, we're also sending a lot of people to Europe. And if you remember Laura's history, when we send people to apply to Europe, we have a high chance that those people will never get realized. So, of course, just to put you some graphs, we have a lot of collaboration between the region. Most of the approvals are coming from ISEC in Americas, between ISEC Americas and Americas. And in realizations, we're going steady. But so far, we have 44, which is very good, considering that most of our borders were closed up until a couple of weeks or months ago, or they are still closed. Now, when we talk about global teacher, I want you to know that global teacher is probably not a super high focus on our entity. Only a couple of entities like ISEC in Brazil, Colombia, Peru, or Nicaragua are running global teacher. And we have a lot of applicants from the Middle East. And you guys need to understand that it's very, very hard for a person from a country from the Middle East to get a visa for one of our countries, especially to come with a working visa, right? And some of our approvals, or most of our approvals, are coming from the European Union as well. And so far, we don't have enough data in realizations to talk about global teacher. So just for you to understand what's going on, right? So what is the key message that I'm trying to tell you with this data? It is that right now, what we need is to focus more heavily on collaborating with partners within the region. And of course, there is no certainty that our EPs will get realized and our slots filled if we do not collaborate within the region and with countries that we know for certain that we can send them and that they will be accepted into the country. That is the key message of all that data that I just showed. And talking about the key partnerships in the region, if we go into the top partnerships in global talent, you can see that some of our entities are in the top 5 global of the best partnerships out there. And you have, for example, Going Global Talent, you have Mexico and Brazil, Peru and Brazil, you have Brazil and Colombia, then you have Mexico and Panama, Chile and Colombia. But you can also note that we have some ones like Brazil or Germany, Brazil or India, that means that we're still collaborating with people outside the region, which is not a bad thing, but it's something to take into consideration for our planning and replanning. And key partnership, again, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Panama, Brazil, Peru, Brazil, Costa Rica, all of the ones that are here. Just for, if you're part of that entity, for you to consider the data to keep working with them or not. And then in Global Teacher, the data is still very new, very fresh. And what we can see here is that we have a lot of applicants from other regions, Egypt, Turkey, Poland, Pakistan, Italy. So what we need to do is to take into consideration what we just said, that we need to start working more closely with the people from within our region. And now, if you're still in the Slido, I want to talk about something that is remote exchange. And that is going to be some of the last data that I'm going to show you. So, of course, we're a region that we're trying to start selling and implementing remote exchange. And my question for you is, how do you think the region is doing so far selling remote exchange? The first answer is we're the best. Obviously, we're doing amazing. The second one is I don't think we're selling a lot. The third one is, are there remote opportunities available? Which is also a valid answer if you don't know. So I will give you a couple of seconds for you to share what you think with me. Guys, you're putting, are there remote opportunities available? What is this? All right. So far, the answers that are coming is that we're not selling a lot. Interesting, interesting. I will give you a couple more seconds just for you to share with me your opinion. What do you think about remote exchange? Yes, some positivity coming. Somebody saying that we're the best, obviously. Nice, nice, nice. Couple more seconds, guys. Input your answers so we can see it live here on the PPT. Another person put that, are there remote opportunities available? Interesting, interesting. Not selling a lot. Amazing, guys. Just because of time, we will move on. But like the general consensus so far is that we're not selling a lot of remote internships, right? Well, I wanted to show you other data, right? So I pushed the hashtag that it's ganando como siempre in Spanish, and in English is winning like always, because according to data, we are the region that is doing the best in selling remote internships. And that is something to be commended of you guys, to say congratulations to everyone for your hard work. You can see here that the people that are selling remote internships, such as Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Mexico, Panama, and Peru, are among or the top sellers in the global scale. So that is something very, very interesting to take into account. And for you to question yourself if our partners, if our prospects are really interested in collaborating with us in the remote exchange. So just some food for thought. All right, just to start wrapping up this session, and what I want to do is leave you with some questions or some insights, tips, and tricks to align your S&D to start working on it for later on when you have your replanning or your planning for you to do it, is what are the steps to align your S&D? First, you need to understand the context of other countries. And then you need to discuss other topics as well. What is their timeline? My timeline as well. How is their membership doing? Do they have LCVPs running the program or not? What is their financial situation? What are other things that might be influencing their operations? And how can I educate my membership in terms of IR and profiles? How can I make sure that my LCVPs, my LCs are collaborating with my IR partners? Then constantly provide COVID updates and restriction data so we know how to adapt. And then when we talk, we need to track each other and have it as one process, have it as a continuous process to know what's going on. And then for you and your MCVPs and your VPs to do sales specifically for your IR partners, because this is going to help you in the process and it's going to make it much, much faster. And then, of course, have efficient communication with your partner entity and within your own entity. So some conversations that you need to have and that need to happen are between your OGT and IGT during the IR plan or during replanning. You need to check if they are talking to each other, how much they align, are they planning based on assumptions, or did they make their research? We had a very interesting session about pre-attraction with your MCVPs. So they now kind of know what they need to do. And then for marketing, what is the attraction plan? Do they talk to OGX? How deep do they go into attraction based on their IR partners? And are they planning to achieve IR goals or not at all? And then between the synergy of MoGX, what are the alignment? What are their goals? Do they have enough to achieve their overall goal? And are the IR partners even mentioned in this planning? And lastly, again, OGT plus IGT, what is their goal alignment between our partner entities? Do they have their goals on planning? Are they setting routines on check? Are they having ESTs in charge of IR? Are we having LCBPs involved? What is also marketing involved or being updated? These are the conversations that need to happen in order for you to align your S&D properly. Now, probably some of you have already seen this, but this is a matrix that we can use to understand which markets and which partners to choose, right? So on the vertical axis, you have the marketing readiness, and on the vertical, you have the supply. And of course, if you have a high supply and high market readiness, you need to upscale that partnership. If I have a partner, which I know has a lot of opportunities that I can match, then I have to upscale that partnership. And then to the left, maybe I have low supply, but I know that they will open opportunities for the EPs that I have, or vice versa. I have EPs that I know that they have EPs that I know that they can come into my opportunities. Then we need to grow that partnership. And then if we go into the bottom left, in the bottom right, I mean, you have high supply, but you have low market readiness. You see that there's a lot of opportunities, but we're not currently like invested or like talking to them. Then we need to invest in them. We need to invest time. If we have resources, it doesn't mean financial resources, but also like HR to invest and grow with them. And the last one is that we have very low supply and very low market readiness. And what we need to do is not touch it for now, but try to understand it. How can in the future we can collaborate with them and grow with them? And of course, just to start closing this space, I have one final message for you. And this is a message that comes from Fede and from me. Fede is the regional manager for OGX. And this is that if you're planning on changing anything or implementing new things or getting rid of them, this summit or this couple of months, it's the moment to tell your partners. What do I mean by this? If I'm going to try and run GVs again, if I'm going to stop prioritizing a certain action, for example, I won't touch global teacher anymore, I'm going to prioritize only in GTA, or I'm going to try and sell these type of things, it is important for your partners to know, because it's better for you to have someone that is supporting your decisions than suffering alone or making other lives harder. All right. So that was my final message for you guys. Hopefully, this gave you a bigger scope of what's happening globally and in the region, and of the actions that you need to take to understand how it's working the supply and demand for us in the new context. For anything, if you need me, you know where to find me. And thank you so much for your attention and your time.
Yo que tanto te quería, yo que tanto te adoraba, y al final yo comprendí que tú eres